Hey guys, Sam Stein here, managing editor at the Bulwark. Tim's
We
throwing some
got an Iowa
haymakers.
poll.
We got an eyeball. Look at Sarah's smile. I haven't seen a smile from Sarah in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Look, we have an wait, sorry. Before we begin, please subscribe to our YouTube page. It's very important. We love it when we get subscriptions. We got an Iowa poll out tonight. Not any Iowa poll. It's sort of the gold standard poll of Iowa, and really, honestly, the gold standard poll pollster of the country, and Selzer's poll of Iowa voters. It came in today with a shock result. I mean, honestly, a shock result. It has Kamala Harris actually leading Donald Trump in Iowa by a margin of 47 to 44. That is a difference. Let me just say, margin of 47 to 44 over Donald Trump. A difference from from September when it was 47 for Trump, 43 for Harris. Putting aside last September, this is like
Wait a minute. I want you to
shocking.
repeat that because I had to look at it 3 times. I
did
looked
too.
at the
I thought
poll.
it was
I first looked at the poll and I was like, "Great news for Kamala! She's only down 3 in Iowa." That was my initial reaction. I was very happy. I fired off a tweet about how happy I was, and then I looked at it again and I was like, "Wait a minute, she's winning by 3 in Iowa."
I honestly thought it was a joke when I saw.
Let me tell you something. Last night, somebody did this. Somebody tweeted, "New Selzer poll has Kamala up 1." And I saw it, and I immediately started freaking out. It was like somebody who was like, I just talked to Ann Selzer, like I called her, and then it was like somebody who was making a joke, and was trying to like break the internet with Kamala up 1, and of course it was going viral, whatever. Because her up 1 is insane in the Iowa poll. Her up 3,
Right.
But here's the thing: you guys got to remember this. Selzer, she has dictated, like she's not been the wrong one. Like there have been times where she has produced things that look like outlier results. And what pollsters learned is that when Ann Selzer's poll looks like an outlier, you better shift your polls to think more like hers. It doesn't go the other way.
I think it's worth going through a little bit of recent history, and then Tim, I'll kick it to you. The reason that people care about this is that back in 2016, everything looked hunky-dory for Hillary. We were just sort of coasting to the election. She was going to win. And then Selzer puts out a poll, exact poll, the last poll Saturday before the election, and it shows her down significantly in Iowa. And that was a shock. Yeah, 7. People were like, whoa, that's genuinely surprising. And there was some dismissal of it. It's an outlier, but in fact, it was a harbinger of complete collapse in the Rust Belt. 2020, again, Biden is coasting. I just looked back. There's one poll that had him up 17 in Wisconsin. It was ridiculous. Selzer comes out Saturday before Election Day, again, down 7. People were like, uh-oh, not great. And lo and behold, Biden barely held on in the Rust Belt. So, yes, I don't think any of us here are going to say, oh, yeah, she's going to win Iowa now. I wouldn't put that bet down. But it does suggest that there is some movement that the pollster community has not picked up, right, Tim?
Potentially. I mean, that's the good possibility that it is grabbing. I think a group that Sarah's talked about a lot. I got to give you credit on this, kind of older rural women. As a group that there's maybe been less focus on. I absolutely huge lead for her among independent women. She had like a 40-point gap among independent women, and the independent men split it was basically tied. It was within the margin of error. And so that is definitely something that could be being captured here. Another thing that could be happening that I've been saying has been happening, anybody that listens to this has been saying has been happening, is that these pollsters are obviously hurting. Like and what that means to herd is like you can, you weight different groups. You can weight your assumptions against certain things to kind of jig with the numbers a little bit. And weighting is a good policy usually, right? Like in 2016, Nate Konis talks about this a lot. Like in 2016, part of the reason people missed is that they weren't weighting by college education. And if you got the poll that had the right number of non-college voters, you saw that Trump was doing way better than the other polls, right? So weighting can be good to get it right, but weighting can also obscure, right? Because you're trying to get it back to the median, and polls are supposed to have outliers. There, and maybe this is one, but there's supposed to be a wide range. We haven't seen that this time, and so all of us have been sitting around going, it's possible these guys are missing something, and we wouldn't know because there aren't any pollsters out there with the balls to just give us the actual results that they're getting. And Selzer has them. She's got the cojones for it, and so does New York Times Siena, and that's why we've been focusing on that one the most. And this poll, I think, indicates that it is possible, not certain, but very possible that there's been herding towards the middle because pollsters don't want to make the same mistakes they did in 2016 and 2020 and underestimate Trump again.
Is that your take, sir?
That is my take. Although, well, first of all, my take, and Tim pointed this out, which I appreciate, because if this turns out to be true, I'm going to lean on it pretty hard as to the thing I was most right about this cycle, which is that the thing that's getting undercounted or underrated, every crosstab that I go look at is the non-college white women, especially older non-college white women, because these older white voters who have voted Republicans, a lot of them came to the party for Reagan. And if you're looking at younger voters or even people in their 30s or 40s, you're getting just a different type of voter than you are for people who are over 50. And they
or over 70 in particular.
Or very much,
the
very
oldest,
much.
Yeah.
That's right. And one of the things about that group of people is it's very counterintuitive. And this is why I think it could get missed, is that people are like, wait a minute, these quite old white voters, they don't seem like Kamala people. And I'm telling you, these older white women are the ones that Dobbs matters to the most. Again, people think it's young women, but actually it's women who are like, wait a minute, my daughters or granddaughters are going to have fewer rights than I did. And they're the ones that oftentimes are, and I think that's, if the polls miss anything, I think it might be how much they're moving. But let me just also talk about why I think this poll matters.
Actually, let me just get you 2 data points, and then I'll take it back to you because they confirm what you say. This is from the Des Moines Register write-up of the poll. It says independent voters who have consistently supported Trump in the lead up to the election now break for Harris. That's driven by the strength of independent women who back Harris by a 28-point margin, while independent men support Trump, but by a smaller margin. Similarly, senior voters who are 65 or older favor Harris, but senior women support her by a more than 2-to-1 margin, 63 to 28, while senior men favor her by just 2 percentage points, 47 to 45. So that is exactly what you were saying, which is this is just women basically saying, nah, we don't want it.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things going on that I do think we've seen in other places too, which is number one, Kamala Harris is winning women by bigger margins than Trump is winning men. So Trump is winning men by very large margins, but he's still not winning them by as much as she is winning women. And when you look at the fact that women are both a majority of people that exist, there are more women than men in this country, and then they vote at a higher rate than men do, right? That is extremely important if you're looking at those kinds of blowout numbers. But the Iowa poll matters for this reason. It's actually not about Iowa. It is shocking to see Kamala Harris winning Iowa. I would be blown off my shoes if I actually thought she could win Iowa. That's actually not even how I'm thinking about it. How I'm thinking about it is that if this poll herding is going on and people are missing it, that Ann Selzer might be picking up something among these white voters that will bode well for her in these industrial Midwest states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska too. And this is what's interesting, right? Nebraska too has been, so Kamala Harris needs that. If she wins those 3 states, a lot of times people forget to mention Nebraska too is what you need to hit that 270 mark to win the Electoral College. And so people very infrequently though have polled Nebraska too. But the last poll that came out just from that little slice, because it's a proportional representation state, when it came out, it had I can't remember, it was a 15-point margin, it was 12. It was enormous. 12, to the point where I think we were all a little bit which I don't know. That does jive though, kind of with her results here, that something's happening in Nebraska. Well, there could be happening with white voters in other places.
And there was another poll, and I'm going to butcher the number, so don't get on me in the comments, but there was a poll of Kansas that came out somewhat recently.
Yes.
It was really weird. It had her down 4, and everyone was like, come on, what is – but this gets to what's been sort of consistent, which is maybe the Rust Belt is actually a bulwark, to borrow a word, for her. And the Sun Belt may be slipping away. Yeah, but it's true. It's you see consistently that she does a little bit better in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania's still up for grabs. But something about the Rust Belt, the North, it seems to be sticking with her more so than the South. And I don't know what it is to explain it, but it's notable.
And it just might be white voters. Frankly, it just might be older white voters that she's gaining ground with. A couple other things I just would add. Wisconsin obviously borders Iowa, and there's a lot of demographic similarities. But Nebraska too is the Omaha media market, which goes into Iowa.
Yeah.
So people do say, like, sometimes they're like, well, the Iowa campaign is a little different than the other campaigns because they haven't been getting the ads, and that is true. But like, there is some overlap, right? Like parts of Western Iowa is actually has been getting the ads from the campaign, and so I think in addition to
I know
the demographic overlap,
Tim Walz made a stop in Nebraska too.
Yeah.
They've been taking care of it. Like they're not like neglecting it. Let me just end. I'm just going to read one and then we could get final thoughts. I just saw this tweet pop up. This is just so you get a sense of how accurate Selzer has been, okay? 2022 Senate results. She had it Republican plus 12. End result, Republican plus 12. 2020 presidential results, Republican plus 7. End result, Republican plus 8. 2020 Senate results, Republican plus 4. Republicans ended up being Republicans plus 7. 2016 presidential, Republican plus 9. It ended up being Republican plus 9. So there you go. I mean, she's pretty spot on.
Well, here's the thing. Can I just say the thing about Anne? And so I've had Anne on my show on the Focus Group pod because I'm obsessed with her. But the thing that I'm obsessed with her, because I'm not that into pollsters generally. Like I like the numbers, but I'm also, and I got a couple of my favorites, Whit Ayers, whatever. But I love her because she knows her state, right? Like the thing about Ann Selzer is she doesn't try to go anywhere else. She doesn't try to do it. She knows the people in her state. The reason she is the most right is because she like sticks to her knitting and is like, this is what I do. I know this the best. And when it comes to the Iowa primaries, right, people take her word as gospel. And I just like, there's no way to not look at this from it. Like, and people have been anticipating this poll. Like the reason I even saw it is because I knew it was dropping at 7. Like everybody in the world who really cares about this is waiting for the Selzer poll, and to have Kamala up 3 is just an astounding. Look, whether it turns out to be right, I don't know, but it is a shocking thing that if Kamala ends up really dominating. Once again, people will look back and say, "Man, Ann Selzer's the only one."
I was on my phone. I was on my phone at 6:59 doing this. Boom.
Yeah.
That's right. What a contrast! I remember the heart sinking moment on Halloween 2016, and I'll remember pulling up in my Uber from getting back from the airport to my home, and thinking that Kamala was down 3, and still being super excited about it. Actually, she's up 3. One other thing, just as it ties to the early vote. That I think, again, is a theory of the case, it could be encouraging, is if you look at the Georgia numbers, a Republican spin that's been something that's had me worried about the early vote numbers is the share of the white vote is up in Georgia versus last time. The share of the black vote is down a little bit. And obviously it benefits Democrats to have the black vote share be higher generally, but just because the share of the vote that they get. But simultaneously, the share of women voters, which is always more, is also up, right? And so the potential through line here between Selzer and that Georgia is that you have white women turning out, and that like their enthusiasm is something that might paint that Georgia early vote Republican spin in a little bit different light. That you're like, oof, like it's good for us that the white vote is up a little bit, but if it's all these white women, and if Selzer is right, and the white women independents are breaking this much for Kamala, that actually then if you look at it kind of a different way, and all of a sudden that number starts looking good for Democrats.
Right.
And let me
Sarah,
just say final thought is the other thing that is getting spun up out of the early numbers, which I'm just trying to ignore. But in seeing them, I'm looking at the number of Republicans that are voting early. And, there's like the Republicans are doing this happy dance, like especially in Nevada, about the number of Republicans that are out there voting. But you know what? If 10% of those Republicans are actually these soft GOP right-leaning independents that end up voting for Kamala, like we've seen in some of the crosstabs, like if they're up, getting 10%, it may not be as good for them as they think, because many of these people who are registered might be these independent women.
I know Sarah says I have last thought, but that was literally why everyone was wrong about the early vote in 2016, because it was the inverse. They're looking at these Democratic numbers coming in the early vote. They're thinking this is great for Hillary, but it turns out there were those Obama-Trump voters everybody talked about in 2016.
It was just Democrats who wanted Trump.
Yeah. And Selzer. Hell yeah, girl. I was going to take a Xanax when I got home, and I don't need a Xanax, it turns out.
Let's not get too excited.
Let's not get too excited.
Let me be in my feelings. Let me have a positive feeling for once. When was the last time you saw me happy?
Take it from here to here.
Okay,
I'm just telling you, like I'm at my sister's baby shower, and I pulled out and jumped in this. I'm sitting in a stairwell to do this because I am hyped.
All right.
All right, fair enough.
Give your love.
Well,
give my love to
Tim
your sis.
Miller, Sarah Longwell,
All right.
thank you so much. As a reminder, everyone who's tuning in, subscribe. You can get this type of hopium right into your veins occasionally. All right. Well,
once in a
take
blue
care.
moon.
Take care, guys. Enjoy the baby shower. Tim, see ya.